What more can you tell us about where things stand between the team and their star running back?
Well, my sense of it, Field, is that the Colts really want to bring this to a resolution, one way or the other. So giving Jonathan Taylor permission to go seek a trade results in two possible outcomes. One, he finds one, a team willing to give him the contract, and then the Colts can work out a trade with that team. The team willing to give him the contract he wants that the Colts won't give him. The other possibility, and we saw this with Austin Eckler and the Chargers earlier in the offseason, when he couldn't get the deal he wanted from the team, he asked if he could go look for a trade. They said yes, and he could not find a team willing to give him that contract, so he ends up back with the Chargers. That's a possible outcome here as well. Now, there's a difference. Jonathan Taylor's 4 years younger than Austin Eckler. At age 24, I think that's a running back that if you're going to extend a running back in this market, you want to be looking for guys in that age range. He's obviously somebody who's been highly productive as recently as 2 years ago. I think they'll get some nibbles. It's hard to say at this point how this turns out. It will require an interested team. The Colts are currently asking for a lot. And as long as that's the case, it might be difficult to find a trade partner. But if that asking price drops a little bit, then I think it gets interesting.
You know, Phil, man, this whole thing is just crazy, man. You got Jim Irsay talking out both sides of his mouth. And first of all, he talked about how the running back position has been devalued, and then went on this spiel about if myself and Jonathan Taylor aren't here, the league will just keep going on. But then in the same breath, you're talking about, oh, by the way, we want a first-round pick, or some type of compensation that equals a first-round pick for Jonathan Taylor. Well, which one is it? Which one is it as it relates to the Indianapolis Colts? So I just think it's going to be hard pressed to get something like this, get a deal like this done.
Yeah, and listen, I think he is talking out of both sides of his mouth, you know, Damien. At the same time, both things are true, right? Like, here's the deal. Like, you're not so valuable at your position that we need to give you a long-term deal when we have you this year under your current salary. We can tag you next year. Like, why do we need to be in a rush to go pay you, you know, more money than that? When, by the way, like, the running back market has spoken. You know, Dan mentioned Austin Eckler. Yes, he's older, but he's been a very productive player. And look, there was an interest, you know, for him. You look at Saquon Barkley. Look, like, there was a situation there where, if you wanted to come after him, you could have let the Giants know you wanted to come after him, and that didn't happen. And so I just think when you look at whatever the delta is between these really good backs, whether it's Barkley, whether it's Taylor, all these guys, and then the next guy that's drastically cheaper, it's not so much that you need to go pay the guy. And yes, he's 24, but do you want to be paying him? Say you sign him to a 5-year deal. Do you want to be paying a 29, soon-to-be 30-year-old running back at the end of that deal around $14 million a year? You probably don't. And so, look, that's why I just think ultimately he's not going to like what he finds, and he ends back with the Colts.
Which could be the end resolution for Jonathan Taylor. I did want to say one thing, though, Tim, when you mentioned how sort of both things that Jim Irsay has been talking about and preaching are kind of true, right? Like, he doesn't necessarily want to pay a running back at the top of the market, but he also won't just give him away for free. I feel like maybe the greatest error that Jim Irsay has made throughout this entire process is making things public, taking things to Twitter, which really has done the Colts no good throughout this entire process. Graz, you talked about how Austin Eckler couldn't find a trade partner, and you mentioned how maybe it'll be difficult for Jonathan Taylor and the Colts. Do you have any sense of what the landscape could look like at this present moment?
A lot of it is really speculation at this point, Field, and not just my own, but that of people around the league that I checked in with over the last, almost 24 hours since this news broke. I think you look at teams that have kind of poked around on that running back market in the later portion of this summer, and that includes teams like the Miami Dolphins and the Minnesota Vikings. I think you look at teams where a playmaker like Jonathan Taylor could maybe make a difference and push a team from contender status to possibly championship status in places like Baltimore or Buffalo. You know, Buffalo hasn't really prioritized the running back position under the current administration, but, you know, it's going to take somebody to decide that this guy is the missing piece for their championship run, right? Like, this is the guy that they need that really elevates them beyond where they already are. And, in terms of what Tim's talking about for the extension, you do a 3 or 4 year extension that gets him to that age 28 when the running backs tend to start to tail off a little bit. Maybe it makes some sense.
All right, Tim, let's talk about something that I think has been under-discussed in this entire situation is we've been so focused in on the seeming bad blood between the Colts and Jonathan Taylor. But the impact on the field, specific to quarterback Anthony Richardson, has been overlooked. How concerned are you about how this might impact a player who was a 4th overall pick, lots of promise, but a guy who needs a lot of seasoning as well?
Field, I think it's a great point by you because the reality of the situation is you have a quarterback that has 13 career starts in college. One of the best things you could do for him is have a really good back in the backfield next to him to help you stay on schedule. A lot of people talk about quarterback's best friend. Hey, it's a tight end. It's a running game. Really what it is not living in 3rd and 7 plus, 3rd and 8 plus. Like that's a quarterback's best friend. And you can do that when you've got a really good back. And so, look, I think that's the leverage that Jonathan Taylor has. The only caveat to that is that they might look at it and say, yes, Anthony Richardson's rookie year. And oh, by the way, you're under contract, Jonathan Taylor. And so and it'd be expensive for you not to play. I think the biggest fear for the Colts would be that he's there and all of a sudden, that ankle just isn't quite right, with a little bit of a wink. And so that to me would be the fear if you're the Colts. But other than that, he'd be a huge help to Richardson.
Yeah, it's hard to not think that if he's unable to find a trade, that being Jonathan Taylor, and he returns to Indianapolis, that he's going to be just fine being back with the Colts because the league spoke to his value. I'm sure Jonathan Taylor would be very much cautious in terms of how he approaches this upcoming season if he does remain with the Colts. He's the guy. He's definitely the guy. But they haven't made it necessarily official, Graz. Even though it hasn't been said so, like, other than an injury, he is definitely the starting quarterback, right?
That's my understanding. Look, Field, I personally think every head coach should be required to announce his starting quarterback every week. I think that'd be hilarious to see, like, Andy Reid come out and be like, yeah, we're going to go with Patrick again this week. We're really happy with what we saw. Yeah. But no, I think Brock Purdy, the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan has made it clear that Brock Purdy will be the starter if healthy. Now, in terms of official announcement, maybe they just don't feel like they have to make one. Maybe they just feel like they want to hedge in case he does have a setback. He is coming off of elbow surgery. He could have a dead arm phase like pitchers in baseball do. So I don't think there's any issue there. I think the issue is who's going to be the number 2 behind him, Trey Lance or Sam Darnold. But as long as Brock Purdy's able to answer the bell for week 1, everyone there expects that he will be the starting quarterback.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question who's the starting quarterback is in San Francisco. The way that Kyle Shanahan talks about Brock Purdy, and I think more importantly, the way the guys on the team react to Brock Purdy, the way his playing style, the emotion that he brings to the game. We've heard, George Kittle, rave about Brock Purdy. So I think this is Brock Purdy's team. And we've seen Brock Purdy in just the sample size that he had last year. Brock Purdy played better than Jimmy Garoppolo. And Jimmy Garoppolo won a lot of games for the San Francisco 49ers. So I think Brock Purdy is entrenched as a starter for the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, he is. Whether they announced it or not, let's be very clear. Brock Purdy's the starter. It will be fascinating, especially because of the NFL's new third quarterback rule, to see who's the backup. There seems to be a legitimate competition between Sam Darnold and Trey Lance to secure that number 2 start. Let's go back to Brock Purdy, though, Tim, because that was the first game that we've seen him play in, even if it was a preseason game. Since that elbow injury, what does this offense need out of him to reach their full potential?
I think, a year ago we were talking about all the speed in Miami, and could Tua Tagovailoa throw the ball deep to utilize all that speed? Well, it's a similar case for the 49ers. They've got a ton of talent at wide receiver, a ton of speed on their football team in general, and I think the short and intermediate stuff like we're looking at right now, is going to be fine. He's a good decision maker, and he's been accurate. But can he really push the ball down the field? Can he be under center, drop back, drop a go route 45 yards down the field, 5 yards from the sideline, consistently and accurately? Can he come off of hard play action and hit a big post down the field, when he's got a little bit of static in the pocket? Those are the things that I think, like, he's got to show that he's able to do. He didn't come into the league with a ton of physical ability in terms of arm talent, but he had enough. The question is, coming off of the elbow surgery, does he still have enough?
Will be interesting. And this 49ers offense, Tim, even though you're making some great points about like some of the vertical stuff down the field, it's amazing that Kyle Shanahan always finds a way to lead the league. His team does in yards after the catch. They are just built to play with the football in their hands.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.